Hey guys, for the second time in the past 2.5 years, I am back with yet another video to share my thoughts on the National Hockey League expanding to yet another new city. When I made my video 2.5 years ago, it was about my thoughts on the National Hockey League expanding to Las Vegas. This time, it's about the NHL expanding to Seattle. Now, with the NHL expanding to Seattle, tomorrow will be December 4th, 2018, and that will be the day where the NHL's Board of Governors will vote on whether to grant Seattle an expansion franchise or not. Now, the thing is, ever since the National Hockey League expanded to Las Vegas, it's their desire to expand to Seattle as well has been one of the worst kept secrets in professional sports. And now that Seattle is renovating their arena there, which is called Key Arena for anybody wondering, I'm not even going to waste my time waiting for the Board of Governors or the NHL's Board of Governors to vote on Seattle, because it's happening, and I just figured, to hell with it, I'm just going to make this video a night early, and I really don't care, because it's happening, and I really want to talk about it and share my thoughts on it, because I think it's about time. I think it's great that the NHL is finally going to be at 32 teams. Both the conferences are finally going to be balanced at 16 teams apiece. And Seattle's going to fit into the Pacific Division perfectly. And on top of that, they will have an instant rivalry with Vancouver. And I actually think they'll have a really good rivalry with the Los Angeles Kings as well, And I have a funny feeling that Seattle's also going to have a really good rivalry with the Kings. And possibly Las Vegas as well. I mean, they could have a rivalry with all the teams, but geographically, they're definitely going to have a Pacific Northwest rivalry, or a Cascadia rivalry, as they call it in Major League Soccer, between Seattle and Vancouver. Now, from what I've been hearing, it will be the Coyotes moving to the Central Division. I think that's absolutely the right move, because Arizona does not follow daylight savings time. And that is also why Pacific Division teams like Anaheim, LA, Vancouver, San Jose, and I might as well include Vegas too, because they're the 5 teams in the Pacific time zone, And Arizona is as well, but as far as I know. But the thing is, Arizona doesn't practice daylight savings time, from what I know, and correct me if I'm wrong on that. But I believe I'm pretty sure I'm right when I say this, but Arizona doesn't practice daylight savings time. And that's also why, for anybody wondering, that's why the Coyotes games, when teams like LA and Vancouver play them, or any team for that matter, that's why their games tend to start on average at 6 p.m. Pacific time, rather than 7 p.m. like, say, San Jose or Las Vegas or Vancouver, and so on and so on. Now, Calgary and Edmonton are in the Mountain Time Zone, which means they're 1 hour ahead of the Pacific Time Zone. But the thing is, Calgary and Edmonton are in the same province, which is Alberta. They're both in the province of Alberta here in Canada, which, by the way, for anybody wondering, I am a Canadian. So that's why I say here in Canada, for anybody wondering. But with Calgary and Edmonton, they're in the same province. They're not being split up into separate divisions, So, of course, Arizona is the perfect city to move to the Central. And I think they'll fit in with the Central Division just fine. At least for the time being, because the reason I say that is because I think they'll figure out the scheduling no problem with Arizona, but with Arizona being a state that does not practice daylight savings time, they're only going to be an hour behind the other 7 Central Division teams anyway. So really, even if it's just for the time being, which I think it's going to be permanent anyway. I think Arizona's going to be perfectly fine in the Central Division, even if they're in a little bit of a different time zone situation compared to the other 7 teams. And I'm going to talk a little bit more about Arizona later on in the video for anybody wondering. And I've touched base on the subject of the Coyotes a bit because I want to talk about them in a little more detail, and I'm actually going to talk about them at the end of the video for anybody curious. But back to Seattle. Now that they are getting in a renovated arena, and now that they're going to be given an expansion franchise, I am ecstatic to see an NHL team finally going to Seattle. Now, when I made my video 2.5 years ago to talk about Vegas, Las Vegas was an unproven market that no professional sports league had ever been to before. On top of that, Las Vegas is a desert market. So at first, they're just like Arizona, they're both in the desert, in the Mojave Desert. And they're both, and Las Vegas is another desert city. But I figured from the very beginning that they would be perfectly fine, and that the desert climate would not make a damn bit of difference to Las Vegas and to the Golden Knights' success. Because remember, Las Vegas is one of the biggest tourist hubs in the world. And with Las Vegas, and as I said 2.5 years ago, and I'll repeat it again, even if their fan base within the state of Nevada itself isn't the biggest, not only do they have tons of implants from Canada and definitely from across the United States, and even probably from Canada as well, but guess what? Fans from all of the NHL's other 30, soon to be other 31 franchises will want to go there on a quick vacation to catch their team playing the Golden Knights, or even possibly catching just to see the Golden Knights as well. So I knew from the beginning that Las Vegas would do fine. But the thing with Las Vegas, though, is that we haven't seen how that market or that city does in terms of attendance when it comes to a team that is not good. Because remember, folks, Las Vegas dropped a bomb on the entire hockey world last year by going to the Stanley Cup final in their very first year as a franchise. If that does not deserve a tip of the cap, I don't know what the hell does. And by the way, to you Golden Knights fans who may be watching this video, I did not intend to make that a pun. Especially when Washington defeated the Golden Knights last year to win their very first Stanley Cup. Just a quick little note from me, a little bit of an apology on my part. Don't worry, I did not say that to put you guys down. I don't want to put you guys down. In fact, I want to give you all the credit that you deserve, because no other NHL expansion franchise, and don't tell me about the 67-68 season St. Louis Blues, because the NHL had a division that was just expansion 6 against the original 6, so to guarantee a new franchise going to the Stanley Cup final. Las Vegas did not have that luxury. They were a team that was built from the bottom up, and in their first season went all the way to the finals and almost won the cup. And if that is not worthy of credit, I reworded that, I don't know what is. And to you Golden Knights fans out there, man, you guys should be proud of your team. And same with you Capital fans out there as well. Absolutely, for both cities. But anyway, I know I'm going a bit off topic there. My apologies. But the thing is, even though Las Vegas has yet to experience a struggling franchise that cannot make the playoffs and is struggling and all that, even right now, even though the Golden Knights haven't been as good so far in the 2018-19 season as I'm filming this video, their building has continued to be full. And Las Vegas brought in a ton of excitement. They were the first expansion team since the 2000-2001 season, when the Blue Jackets and the Wild both joined the National Hockey League. And I gotta confess, I have thought it was extremely exciting to watch the Golden Knights myself. And I'm equally excited to see a new team in Seattle. Seattle has been proposed for decades, and I think it's terrific that they're finally going to be getting a franchise as well. And for me, to be honest, I was really curious to see how Las Vegas was going to do as an NHL city. And they've proven themselves to be Las Vegas has proven to be a good city. A really good city, a great city for an NHL franchise so far. And with Seattle, though, I'm really excited because Seattle is a big sports city. And, I mean, they had the Seattle Supersonics for years until they relocated to Oklahoma City about a decade ago, which I know a lot of basketball fans have been upset about that even to this very day. And I wish that Seattle would eventually get their franchise back, which they should, in my opinion. But with Seattle, I know that Seattle is in the same region of North America as Vancouver, and I guarantee that they are big on hockey too. I'm sure of it. And I think they're going to do really, really well. I mean, they have the Seattle Sounders in Major League Soccer. They have the Seahawks in the NFL. They have, of course, the Mariners in Major League Baseball. They used to have the Supersonics in basketball. And now they're going to be getting an NHL franchise. And being in the Pacific Northwest, I know they're going to do just fine. I think Seattle is going to probably be full almost every night for their games. And at least in the short term. And even in the long term, I really can't see Seattle having attendance issues. I mean, if anything, they may be like Vancouver is right now with their franchise and with their team not having been as good for a long time and been at the bottom of the Western Conference for the past few years. But besides that, I have no doubt in my mind that Seattle's going to be a great NHL city. And once they get their newly renovated Key Arena ready to go, I can't wait to see Seattle get a franchise. And unlike Las Vegas, I don't see Seattle as an untested market for a professional sports team, let alone an NHL team. I think that Seattle's going to do perfectly fine. They have great fan support for all of their teams, as far as I know. I mean, even the Seattle Sounders in Major League Soccer have an incredible fan base. The Seahawks are always sold out. And the thing is even with the Seattle Mariners, I know that they haven't been as good for a long time, but I know that they have pretty good fan support from what I know. And I think that Seattle is a city that is more than deserving of an NHL franchise. And truth is, in my opinion, I know that Seattle will be a better NHL city than some of the cities that currently have franchises right now. And I'm being honest when I say that. I think that their fan support will be much better than some NHL franchises that are in the NHL right now. But the thing with Seattle is there is a couple things that I want to talk about too. Number one, to you Seattle NHL fans out there, and to you folks that do live in Seattle or Washington State or in the Pacific Northwest for that matter that are going to become fans of this team once it gets going. There's one thing about the whole expansion thing that frustrates me, and I think it's unfair, is that I hear that Seattle's going to have to pay $650 million for their expansion franchise when the Golden Knights paid $500 million, $500 million for theirs. I feel like it's a little bit unfair, and I hope that the expansion fee is the same as the Golden Knights so that they can both come in equally as a pair of new franchises to take the league from 30 to 32. But, I mean, if you're an NHL owner, of course you're going to want to try and get more money out of the expansion fee, which I understand that side of the coin. I just feel bad for the Seattle franchise for having to pay more to be the second team out of a pair of expansion franchises to get the NHL to 32. instead of 30, where right now it's at 31. And the second thing too, with Seattle coming in, as I said in my old video about the NHL expanding to Vegas, I'm not looking forward to the expansion draft. And with the way that the Golden Knights were able to use the expansion draft system, or expansion draft to their favor, they were able to make deals in a way that made the Golden Knights really good right away. They got quite a few good players right off the hop. But it wasn't just the rules of the expansion draft that made them good. It was George McPhee and the Golden Knights franchise organization that worked really hard to put together the right crew and the right players and the right team, and they built chemistry, they got hot right away, and they almost won the Stanley Cup last season. Now, I mean, you got to give credit where it's due. They used the system to their advantage, and they did a wonderful job with the players they picked. And not only that, even after that, you know, just because you make all these good deals and stuff doesn't mean the team's going to be good. The team has to do well on the ice, and they did both. They did well at the expansion draft. They got their franchise going right away, and their on-ice chemistry and the whole team just gelled and got hot, and they did amazing last year. And it really was incredible to watch. I mean, the Golden Knights story from last season is the type of story that any hockey fan would probably end up telling their children at some point in time. Like, I mean, I could see myself in like 20 years from now, if I ever have kids, potentially telling my kids about how incredible the Golden Knights were in their very first season as a franchise. Now, I'm hoping that with the Seattle expansion that'll be happening soon, I hope that the expansion draft rules are changed a bit so that they can't do as much as Las Vegas did. And to you Seattle fans out there, I'm sorry guys, it's just I felt like the Golden Knights had a lot of power in that expansion draft, which, you know, the NHL did accomplish their goal of creating a new expansion team with a lot of buzz and a team that was able to be a contender right away, which I can appreciate the NHL wanting that, to build buzz in the new city itself, to build a buzz in Las Vegas itself. But at the expense of the other teams, though, I'm hoping that the expansion draft rules are modified at least a little bit for when Seattle does start to build their team of players. Now, the next thing I want to quickly touch base on is the uniforms, let alone the team name. Green is definitely going to be a part of their color scheme. If it isn't, something's seriously wrong. It's Seattle. They're known as the Emerald City, for Christ's sake. And I think Washington State is known as the Evergreen State, if I'm not mistaken. Feel free to correct me if I'm wrong. But in terms of a team name, I did make a video about what I would name certain cities if they got NHL franchises back in the summer. I'm hoping that they're going to end up calling themselves the Seattle Totems. That name has hockey history in Seattle, and I love the name, and I think it fits Seattle so well. I mean, the Pacific Northwest, I think the name Seattle Totems will be a wonderful choice, and I hope that's what they go with. Now, with Seattle, I am not a skeptic at all. I was a skeptic when Las Vegas first was granted an expansion franchise. I'm not anymore. I was a bit of a skeptic, even though I figured tourism would be enough to make that team a very good team in terms of attendance, even if the team itself isn't doing very well. But with Seattle, they're a good Pacific Northwest city. They're one of the biggest U.S. cities that does not have an NHL franchise. I have no doubt in my mind that Seattle is going to do fantastic. And honestly, I can't wait to see them join the NHL as well. But not only that, something else I do want to touch base on too is back to Arizona. And to you Coyotes fans out there, I do hope that your team is able to turn things around, not only on the ice but off the ice as well, with attendance and with annual revenues, and that the Coyotes can start to become a profitable franchise so that they can stay for many years to come. Which, I'm being honest, I really do hope that the Coyotes won't have this happen. But there has been, in the past year, more and more conversation about Houston, Texas wanting an NHL franchise. And part of me has a feeling that if Arizona does relocate, they are relocating to Houston. And I think that the NHL really wants to go to Houston, not only because it's yet another big U.S. City without an NHL franchise, but also they will have an instant rivalry with Dallas. And it'll be a battle of Texas, just like Vancouver and soon-to-be Seattle will be an instant Cascadia rivalry, or a Pacific Northwest rivalry. Dallas and Houston would have an instant Texas rivalry. And I could honestly see the NHL looking at that in the long term. And I also think that's part of why, in my opinion, why it's possible. I'm not saying it is. I'm saying that there is a chance that in the future, I think the NHL could be thinking about what if Arizona doesn't work out. And I think that, I think Houston would definitely be a city that the NHL would like to put a team in as well. I mean, I'm hoping that what happens is that Arizona the Coyotes will turn things around. They'll have way better attendance. Their team will do good, and they won't have to be relocated at all. But something else I heard of was the potential of the NHL wanting to expand to 36 teams or expand beyond 32 teams. And you know what? Quebec City wants a team. Houston, Texas wants a team. I'm sure that the National Hockey League, and I've even heard rumblings over the years about Portland, Oregon as well, So, to me, I would honestly love to see the NHL even expand to 36 teams one day. I mean, imagine if in the Pacific you could add Seattle and Portland, and then in the Central you could have Arizona in the Central and Houston, and in the Atlantic have Quebec. And as for the Metropolitan Division, I'll just make up one and just say, like, for example, Baltimore or Cleveland or Cincinnati. I'm just using those cities because I can't think of another city off the top of my head that would fit in the Metropolitan Division very well. But if you think about it, I mean, I could see the NHL even wanting to eventually expand to 36 teams, especially with the amount of money they're getting in expansion fees from both Las Vegas and soon Seattle as well. But I could also see a future where if Arizona doesn't work out, I could even see them potentially or easily being relocated to Houston if the NHL decided on it, because Houston is a big U.S. market as well. But I kind of have a weird feeling that what could end up happening is there could in the future be a time where the NHL does expand to 36 teams and Arizona goes nowhere, which I'm hoping for, to be honest. I think that Arizona's been in the NHL for a long time, and I'd feel really bad for their fans if they lost their team. But in the event that Arizona does relocate, if they're being moved to the Central Division, I would not be surprised to eventually see Arizona relocate to Houston. I think that with the rivalry with Dallas and with the size of that market, or the size of that U.S. city, I could easily see the National Hockey League wanting to jump in and put a team there. But I think it would either be Arizona relocating to Houston, or it'll be a situation where the NHL just decides to expand to 36 teams, which I honestly have a feeling that it could happen in our lifetimes or in the next 25 to 30 years. I mean, it'd be a long time from now, but I think in 25 years' time, I could see the NHL strongly considering it. Maybe even sooner than that. But anyways, you guys, once again, I can't wait to see Seattle in the NHL. I think they will be a perfect fit. But with that, you guys, I hope you enjoyed this video. And of course, as always, take care. And as always, bye for now.